Hello everyone, I hope you've had a great day so far and that you're doing well. For this video we'll be going through a unboxing and review of the Transformers Studio Series Core Class Ravage, and this particular version of Ravage is from the Transformers Bumblebee movie. In terms of the figure, this would have been released by both Hasbro, at least for the Western markets, and Karatomi, and I believe it was released, I want to say early 2022, possibly late 2021. It's been a while, and plus we're in October now, so a lot of things happened in 10 months. So continuing on with my slow progression through the Transformers Bumblebee toy line series, we've done a few to date and there's still plenty more to go through. So I thought, let's start with Ravage, because I like doing core classes. Plus I'm going to run out eventually, and at the same time this obviously foreshadows Soundwave being done at some point in time. So here we have the front of the box for Ravage. So long gone is the protective plastic covering, so we can see straight into the box of Ravage in his cat mode. Yes. Standard Studio Series decorum for the front of the box. Transformers Bumblebee movie logo, well, the logo anyway. And we do have the CGI of Ravage on the front of the peg holder backing. Side of the box, just front of Ravage's face with the Studio Series and Core Class labeling, and the other side pretty much the same image, just flipped around the axis. So that's the front of the box. In terms of the back, we do have a shot of Ravage once again in his, I'll say feline mode. I can't remember if Ravage is supposed to be more of a panther. It's been a while. Either way, four-legged feline. And his alt mode, which I think can slide into Soundwave. I think. I will admit I don't pay attention to everyone's reviews, because I know ultimately I'll be grabbing the stuff. So, but anyway, alt mode, standard mode, 11 steps. So that was the box. Nothing else much thereafter that we haven't already looked at. That's a good thing about the core classes. So I will open up the box for Ravage. So what we'll expect to see, so obviously Ravage himself, probably some accessories, the instruction manual, and a bit of a faux background, at least at the core size, for Ravage. And with everything now out of the box, so we have the expected manual, as expected. Ravage, we have 4 accessories, which is pretty cool, and I did have a bit of a light chuckle with one of them because I thought it was a bit of a nostalgic look. And we do have this little Cybertronian based background as well, which seems to be a very common one for a lot of these Transformers Bumblebee items. So before we get too carried away with the accessories and the manual, in terms of Ravage in front of the battle scene, I guess that would be something along the lines. Obviously a downside about doing this on a video right now in terms of angles and scaling, it doesn't look fantastic, so this will just be a bit of a quick indication of Ravage against the backdrop. I will have some pictures on my Instagram account shortly after this video goes live to obviously have a look at Ravage, but to try and pose Ravage with the backgrounds and stuff like that. So that is Ravage with the included faux background. That's the background. We've seen it plenty of times. We will probably continue to see it in the future. So putting that to the side, so there is Ravage. The accessories, which we'll just put over there. as for Ravage's manual, so the first few steps will be on how to attach the accessories. So Ravage will have something that will basically go on his back, which I dare say is some type of missile pod system. And then on his hind legs will be his little side guns, which is a very huge callback to his original G1 incarnation. And then underneath Ravage will be this little extra item, which, for those who know, will probably realize the item looks a lot like the included accessory from the Generation 1 Soundwave toy. If I remember correctly, it was the tip of his missile launcher weapon. If I remember correctly, that is. So that's attaching all the accessories onto Ravage. Now, I'm very partial to the underbelly item, but I mean, now that I know what it is, it's quite cool, but I feel it does throw off some of Ravage's aesthetic by having it there. The missile pod and the two side guns are definitely good, but something about that, I don't know, it just blows off the proportions. But anyway, that's me. And in terms of the transformation, so Ravage being basically a tape cassette, it's just going to be a lot of folding things in and out over itself. One of the accessories will be able to tuck into his main body as things get transformed. Looking at the back of Ravage, so just more flipping and folding in of his limbs, as well as the subsequent tabbing in to put everything together and put him into his, I dare say, Cybertronian tape form. And he will also be able to have his little side guns attached to him in his tape mode. And in fact, lastly, if we want to throw in random attachments, he can also have his little other item attached as well. Pretty cool. Ravage's alt mode being what it is, I'm not a hero there with random things being attached to it. So that was his manual. Now, accessories, before we get too carried away. So, now that we know what everything is, so we know the missiles go onto his back like so. Back like so. His guns. Now I'm going to assume the way I'm putting them on is the right way up. And the reason why I've made that deduction is because I think the little scope thing should be on the top as opposed to the bottom, but I could be wrong. I guess it will just come down to your personal preference if you prefer the scope components up or down. So I guess in terms of Ravage, so with just his basic personal accessories, that is what he looks like. So from the side-on view, so you can see one of his side blasters. If you look at him from the front, you can see the top of that missile pod. Oh, his mouth does close. Very nice. Top view of his accessories. Another view. Apologize in advance that his legs are probably not well planned out. Now for the final accessory, which is this last bit, that will basically, from what I understand, just tuck in underneath there. It's I mean, it's not terrible looking, but it does seem to just alter the Ravage aesthetic just a little bit too much. But it is good that he can at least have that on him, so it's one less thing to worry about. So that's Ravage with his accessories on. Now, for the purposes of reviewing Ravage, I will take that off. I'll keep the other accessories on for the time being, up until I get either very annoyed with them or do want to take them off. Now, Ravage. So we have, now this will be an interesting thing because Ravage being Ravage will have a different body form than past reviews. So Ravage, trying Ravage from the direct front, side, the back, the other side, the top down, the bottom up, and I guess just a quick little side view. So for a core class, I'd say this incarnation of Ravage has actually been done quite well. To the point that I feel it's probably one of the better Ravages within the past decade. In saying that, there have been a lot of Ravage releases in the past decade as well. So that's a quick look of Ravage's general look. Now, in terms of art, well, before I do articulation, yes, Ravage will definitely stand on his own for paws. Now, you probably will need to just bear in mind that when you do that, just to try and flatten out the paws accordingly to make it look a bit more stable. In terms of articulation, so the head can basically go down and go all the way that up. Now the down is part of the transformation, but still in terms of articulation, that's some good degree of neck movement. The fact that you can basically look down and then look up. The bottom jaw is also capable of opening and closing, so that is actually really, really cool that you have some of that amount of articulation within Ravage's head. So that's Ravage's head. There's no real other movement. Doesn't move around on a ball and socket, doesn't move side to side, it's just up and down with the jaw. In terms of the forward legs, and I'll just move some of these just out a little bit. So the legs will basically they're probably capable of doing a full 360, but just because of how things are in terms of moving things around, it's going to be a very clunky attempt to do a full 360 with the legs, at least at the upper shoulder area. So definitely capable, but it's not that great. The legs, well, the forelegs will be able to just so you can have them this tight to the body, or try to, and they will be able to pop out just that much. So not too much there, but that's still the ability to have a bit of a wider forward stance. In fact, I might just do it that way. So that's the forelegs. If I move this to the side ever so slightly, so the paws can move up and down like so, and there will be a bit of a, I dare say, knee type bend, so the leg will be able to do that. So you can actually do some interesting little cat type swatting and things like that, and the leg will also be able to go back as well, but I do believe that will probably be part of the transformation. And then lastly, well, we're already talking about the paws, so it can do this some good forward and back movement. So that's in both the front legs. Now, if I just stretch out those front legs ever so slightly, one of the accessories, that missile, or I dare say missile pod, can move a nice 360 around in the port that it's connected in. There won't be any swivels at the I dare say, equivalent of the waist. So it's all one flat body. The tail, while we're here, can move up and down. I do believe the tail will also ultimately move in a bit, but that's okay. So there's some up and down movement on the tail. In terms of the hind legs, so we know these things, while the side guns can do a nice full 360 in the port they're connected to. I will take this one out for the time being though. In terms of the legs, so the back legs, much like the front, can probably do, actually no, I take that back, probably cannot do a full 360 because there are parts here, in fact this little bit of plastic will prevent the leg from fully going around, so you're not going to get a full 360, but depending which way you move you will get a huge degree of movement nonetheless. So that's basically the hip joints of the forelegs. In terms of the knee equivalent, so we'll go all the way forward as well as all the way back, so that's actually not too bad. So that'll be for both left and right hind legs. As for the paw, it does have some amount of movement there as well. And in fact, we actually seem to have a... Actually, is this another... There is, albeit very stiff, there's also an additional point of articulation here as well. So you will have the hip area, the knee, this little bit here, and then finally the back paw itself. And this actually appears to be only on the back leg, so I dare say that's how you do more of that style of look compared to the front legs, which will probably just be more like that. So that's the articulation of the hind legs. So overall, for a core class, Ravage actually has a good amount of articulation for a little guy. Now, bear in mind, because he also has the forelegs, it might take you a little bit of time to get them into a position you're happy with. But yeah, that's pretty impressive actually. So I've just done some little bit of reposing of the legs accordingly. So that is very, very cool. So that's Ravage in his, I dare say, his standard feline mode. What I will now do is I will transform Ravage into his alt mode. I'll probably attach all the accessories on. Just have a quick look at that before I take them off. And then I will pose some final closing thoughts about Ravage. Okay, and with Ravage now in his cassette block, I'm not sure actually what to call it. Yes, it's the block. So the transformation wasn't too bad. I'll cover that off in a little bit, but I guess to look at Ravage in his alt mode. So from one side, the quote-unquote front, the other side, the back, the underside, and the top. And yes, the accessories have all been put on, one of which is very neatly tucked away in his underbelly. So it's definitely an interesting look. I don't know if I would elect to keep this on him. So if I actually took this off, this is what Ravage's top side would look like without it on. So he looks a lot better as a communication block. In terms of what does he do in his alt mode, not much. So there's no real moving parts. He is just he is a block. He is a tape block. But yeah, but it does look okay. Even with the two weapons attached to the back of him, they actually don't look that bad. If I were to take them off though, that is basically what Ravage will look like without them on. So in a way, he actually does look better having those on than having them without. So I dare say I actually will put them back on. More to the point, I will attempt to put them back on. In fact, have I put them on the wrong way? I might have put them on the wrong way. Oh, either way. Now in terms of his transformation to get to this block, it wasn't that bad. I think being the first transformation, it's always a little bit hit and miss because you're not too sure what to expect. The head was fine, the tail was fine. In fact, the actual legs they're on a little bit of a, is it correct to say hinge? Either way, the legs need to move forward, so the actual back piece here can actually come down to make this back of the tape block. In terms of his legs, they do need to go in a particular orientation. But in saying that, both the forelegs and the hind legs do actually tab into certain positions. So unlike certain other Transformers I've done reviews for in the last few weeks, where bits and pieces just felt very loose, they didn't really connect into anything. Even in the Ultra mode, the legs will actually tab in very nicely, so they actually will feel secure. The only thing that probably won't feel as secure is just the front paws. Now I think I've taken a little bit of creative license with trying to just get some of the paws and everything together to just line them up nicely. When I first did it, I had one of these paws resting quite nicely against the back, and then one of them, I think in fact it was actually this side, would actually jut out that much. So it just seemed really, really weird. So I guess a little bit of effort's needed there just to just line everything up and make it look quite nice. But other than that, transformation really wasn't that bad at all. It didn't take me too long, and I think, as I said, the only thing that really was a bit of a stumbling block were just aligning the legs. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but there's some very nice detailing on Ravage's front legs in the way of he has his Decepticon logo on both his right side and his left side. So that is very cool. So that is Ravage, and I will just put his little missile end back on. I'm kind of hoping Soundwave can use this because that'd be really cool. But yes, it does remind me of the actual end of the missile that G1 Soundwave has. General thoughts. So Ravage in his, I'll still call it a feline mode. Surprisingly, for a core class and Ravage, there is some nice articulation. The head has some good articulation. Granted, it can't do left to right. The forward legs and the hind legs also have some good articulation, with the hind legs having that even extra point of movement, which was quite surprising. The articulation. The accessories look very nice on Ravage. As I mentioned at the beginning, dubious about this extra bit on his underbelly, but without it, he actually does look really, really cool. So I would say his feline mode, good representation. in terms of his alt mode, even in his original G1 tape cassette, that was basically it. It was not the most fun alt mode to do anything additional with, so I would say it is true to what he needs to be in terms of his alt mode. Obviously, it's nice that all of his accessories can be attached to him in his alt mode, and it actually doesn't look that bad. Now, I do have Soundwave, so no doubt he'll probably be on the review list in the upcoming weeks, and Ravage will naturally make a guest appearance. So a few points about his feline mode, a few points about his alt mode, general final thoughts. Ravage is definitely going to be one of those figures that you either keep him in Soundwave or have him in his feline mode, and I would say his feline mode actually has some good playability about it for a core class, and also has some fairly sturdy knee joints. So once again, I don't know what it is with core classes and knees. For those who are fans of all of the toy line for Transformers Bumblebee, Ravage is definitely a solid acquisition. So if you're a fan of Soundwave, fan of the Decepticons, fan of Ravage in particular, the movie, all that, I would actually say overall Ravage is definitely going to be a good addition to the collection. In fact, can I do that with a Ravage? Yes, I can. Yeah, so I'm overall quite happy with Ravage. He will definitely go back into his feline mode, but yes, we'll see also what happens when I finally hit up Soundwave. So that brings us to an end of the unboxing and review of Core Class Ravage. Definitely an interesting take on Ravage, but overall I would say he's been translated from screen to figure with both a alt mode and his standard feline mode quite well. Accessories are good, the colours and paint apps are pretty spot on, and yeah, I'm quite enjoying Ravage. No idea who will be the unboxing and review for the upcoming week. I guess we'll see how things go. Could be another Transformers Bumblebee one, could be something else. We'll see how things go. Depends how I feel, or if there's any recommendations, etc. I feel there was a inferred recommendation off my, was it Clampdown? To have a look at deep cover. It is on the cards. I do have deep cover, so we'll see how that goes. Might just slot him in between Transformers Bumblebees, just to keep it varied. Thank you very much for watching this unboxing and review video. Feel free to leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. Extra content can also be found on my Instagram account, link below. Stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in either a future Transformers video or another video of some other content on my channel. See you.